Do you remember Carmageddon? Oh, I remember Carmageddon. The classic times when we'd just run about in your car, running people over, smashing into other cars, and literally creating mayhem. It was one of the greatest games of my childhood, and quite frankly, one of the pivotal games to bring in the ESRB system that we all know today. But guess what? Carmageddon's now back in 2016 with Carmageddon Max Damage. But I have a question. Does Carmageddon bring that classic feel of bloodshed and violence to a modern era? I'm Don the Expert of Calls from VideoGamesUncovered.com, and this is our review of Carmageddon Max Damage. So with no story attached to the game at all, you are simply thrown into it with a career mode to undertake, and in this single player experience, players will be able to take on different objectives in order to acquire points which are used to unlock the next level. These objectives can vary from having to murder X amount of pedestrians, to complete laps around the level, or to eradicate your competitors. These missions can feel enjoyable for the first few undertakings, but their repetitive nature starts to make the game turn stale very quickly, especially since you would initially think that these matches should last on average anywhere between, I don't know, maybe 3, 5, 6, 7 minutes tops. Well, in this case they can last potentially up to 15 to 20 minutes for a single objective. Wow, does it feel slow. And your reward for unlocking these new areas comes in the form of new cars or upgrades that you can equip in the garage, which sadly leads into another problem. In order to upgrade your vehicle of choice, you need to leave the game mode you are currently on and return to the main menu in order to apply it. This is a complete removal from the immersion and can be bothersome when you want to do quick changes before the next mission. And on top of that, these unlockables themselves are also misleading, as they fail to tell you what they do and which cars can and can't equip them. You can end up winning an augment for one of the game's cars and never use it under the ground, but you never use the specific vehicle whatsoever. On top of that, you would think, oh, I've unlocked an upgrade for my car, I'm just gonna slap that on, see how it goes. You can't do that, because you need to pick up coins that are in these levels so that you can actually put these upgrades onto your car. So let me get this straight. I unlock an upgrade and I can't put it on me because I need coins in the levels that I'm not really concentrating on getting because I'm kind of concentrating on the objective, and then I need those in order to upgrade my car. It's a little bit cumbersome, it's a little bit confusing, and in turn, it's just bad. There is also no incentive to try different cars apart from slight stat differences that seem to be more aesthetic than anything else. It is simply a matter of choosing which car grabs your attention the most and heading out into the field to cause some mayhem. Speaking of the cars, their designs for the most part are great representations of the originals. Seeing them revived in a new 3D environment is a great burst of nostalgia for fans of the classic release, such as myself. But their looks are hindered by the game's art style, which is an unpleasant mess. The cars stand out on very basic and drab looking environments, with pickups looking like items out of Borderlands or equivalent titles that use a cel shaded look. The power-ups looking like this actually stand to the game's benefit, as you are then enticed to drive over them and claim the weaponry or bonuses that lie within. But this strange combination makes Carmageddon look like a remastered version of a PS2 or original Xbox title. It doesn't stand out as much as you would want it to, and does not leave you breathless when you see explosions, bursts of blood, or collisions. On top of all of that, did I mention that there are barrels that you can pick up that look exactly like the other ones that will either give you points or weapons or something along those lines that will literally annihilate your car. I understand why these are in there, because in a multiplayer aspect it adds a little bit of a development in there. If you accidentally run over one, or if you push your opponent into one and see them go boom boom, that's amazing. But having them in a level where you're literally concentrating on the race itself, and these are scattered on the main track, like on the actual main path that you're going on, and you have to swerve in and out of them, which we'll get to, is completely cumbersome. The biggest competitor to this is Wipeout, and Wipeout has very solid control and very solid upgrade mechanics. This just feels like a mess, left, right and centre. The cars in game all feel like they have had their tyres battered in banana juice as they slide around with every turn you make. Even with upgrades, their wild control around both tight and loose corners make things incredibly difficult, especially if you are hunting down someone or desperately changing direction to the next checkpoint. Weapons can come in many different forms, from straightforward shunts, throwing cars straight into the air, and setting pedestrians ablaze. These can feel great to pull off, especially if you're able to rip apart your opposing vehicles piece by piece. The bad of this, however, comes from some of them lacking use against the AI. You will find your favourites and use them constantly, whilst others will just sit on your weapons bar begging to be used. All of this accumulates to create a game that doesn't quite know what it wants to do. Does it want to be more like a brutal Mario Kart, or is it satisfied with being a lackluster Twisted Metal? It just doesn't know. And if you're curious as to what Carmageddon Max Damage feels like, it is as if Duke Nukem Forever came out and did nothing to try and hit the modern day market. At least when that game released, it tried to hit home with updated graphics, enemies, and the Duke one-liners. But with Carmageddon, however, there is no such sign of trying to improve or stand out. It's happy with being that little niche title that you play every couple of hours on those off days, and it is such a shame to see. As I said earlier, with its biggest competitor being Wipeout, you can play Wipeout for hours on end, doing the same objectives because you want to do the faster laps. You want to go around there and you want to destroy and annihilate your opponents in a completely different way like you did before, and you get rewarded every single time you do it. And guess what? They only last a few minutes tops because of how solid the controls are. But in Carmageddon, those few minutes of amazing fun that you can do for hours on end drab into long, agitating, annoying controls and times that just leave you wanting more and leave you thinking to yourselves, wow, there's nothing here to keep me playing. It's just drab. And you have all these wild and crazy characters with their just as nuts looking car designs that are just there as window dressing rather than actual characters. Don't get me wrong, it's great to see Max return, but you don't get the chance to attach to him like you do Sweet Tooth in Twisted Metal. That game had a storyline which helps you link to the character and drive the narrative of the entire world. With nothing like that in this game, Carmageddon simply falls flat and leaves you wanting more from the overall experience after playing it for 2 hours straight. And with such a lacking game overall, it is a sign that maybe Carmageddon shouldn't have come back after all this time. With that said, ladies and gents, I'm giving Carmageddon Max Damage 3 out of 10. It is such a shame to see, as I'm a massive fan of the original Carmageddon, but it's just not that great. It's the lack of a vision, it's the lack of actual design that is going into it, and overall, it's confused as to what it wants to do and what audience it actually wants to target. Does it want to hit your nostalgia, or does it want to drive you into the hell of boredom? It doesn't quite know. But with all that said, ladies and gentlemen, that's our review of Carmageddon Max Damage. What are your thoughts on the game? Let us know what your thoughts are in the comments below, and I'll see you guys next time for another review here on VGU Gaming on YouTube and VideoGamesUncovered.com.